working? All right. Let's get this all set up. Need to adjust. There we go. Need to adjust. There we go. Come on. All right. Hopefully that works. Cool. All right, so it is 9 o'clock where I live, and I figure I might as well jump on here for a little bit, see if anyone is available to pop in, if they have any tennis gear related questions that they want answered, they have any idea of, no, just if they have any tennis gear questions going on, figured I might as well just jump on here, see if anyone needs help, and we can go from there. But besides that, this is what I'm going to be doing for a little bit. So yeah, we'll wait until some more people get in here, see who we can help, and see what we can talk about. Because I think the only person in here right now is me. That's what it at least looks like to me. So we'll let a few more jump on in, and then we'll go from there. If you are watching this live back, I just want to say hello. Thank you. I appreciate you for coming to watch this. It means a lot. If you're not watching this, then I don't know how you're hearing my voice, but that's okay, I guess. But we'll see. I'll probably stay here for about 10 to 15 minutes, depending upon how many people come in or how many questions I get. And then if I get a ton, great, I may be able to stay longer, but if not, then we'll end in about 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll just see who all shows up and what we can help with. All right, let's find out. You know, that was something that I was thinking about today, and since no one's in here, I might as well just talk to the camera as if I'm just like ranting along. So that was something I noticed today and yesterday too, because I did not do very much these past 2 days. And I want to do a lot of cool stuff. And hello to the person that just joined. Thank you for being here. If you have, I don't know who you are, but if you have any questions about tennis gear or anything that's you're curious about it, I'd love to help you. Just drop a comment and I'll answer as best as I can. As I was talking about, though, with me not doing too much these past 2 days, I was just thinking, it's like, man, why am I not doing a lot when you have, and whoever, you two that are here as well, you may also know this, but just you have goals for yourself. You have goals you want to hit, whether it be personal for your life, whether it be for your job or anything. And then you just go about, you get enough time to think about it, and you actually get the time to then put in a few hours or put in more work to then achieve those goals and move forward to it, but you just don't. That was something that I would say arguably I did today, being that Speed MP Legend 2023 versus 2025. Andrew. All right. So, big thing from what I've heard about Speed MP 2023 versus Speed MP 2025, besides the fact that the 2025, oh yeah, because that, I'm going to assume you mean, yeah, the Speed MP Legend. So, the Speed MP Legend 2025 is essentially the brand new speed that is going to come out next year in 2026, and that's why it has the thing they call it the boron material that's in it. So from what I've heard from players that have had both the original Speed MP Legend 2023 versus the Speed MP Legend 2025, the Speed 2025 is a little bit more controlled and is a little bit more stable compared to the 2023. This guy, he had felt that the 2023 kind of lacked a little bit more in terms of just, how do I say it? It just felt a little bit more hollow compared to the 2025. It still played very similar, but the 2025 is going to offer a little bit more of a well-rounded racket from the gentleman that I was talking about that bought the 2025 Legend and had the 2023 Legend. So he was saying it was a little bit better of an all-around speed. It just kind of does everything the 2023 speed did, but just a little bit better and had a little bit better feel because it wasn't necessarily like as it wasn't as flimsy. So that's what he felt was the biggest difference from the 2025 to the 2023. And from how much this guy has tested rackets and how much I've helped him to test rackets, I feel very confident in going with what he has said, just because I myself personally have not got to try the new Speed MP Legend yet or the Speed Pro Legend yet. I want to, especially before they come out in the normal colorway. But those were the biggest things that my friend had noticed when he bought his Speed MP Legend 2025 and compared it to the Speed MP Legend from 2023. So, Andrew, thank you for the question. Let's see. I find the 2023 a little mushy on contact, hoping the contact feels a little more crisp. Maybe a stiffer poly would help. Stiffer poly could help, and I think the 2025 as well, you are going to feel a little bit more of a solid feel, not as mushy when you actually do hit with it compared to the 2023. But depending upon what poly you're using, I think you can also achieve that if you still have the 2023. But it would just depend on what you're using and what tension too. Because what string are you using in there right now, Andrew? And for all those who have joined us here recently, thank you for joining. Toro. Okay. Let me make sure. Toro line strings, I always I know which ones they have, but I always forget which ones do what because I don't use Toro line that much. Toro. Yeah, 6-sided. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, if you're very confusing names. Yeah, I know. Toro, Otoro. Then you have Wasabi. It's just like sometimes you're just like, man, you just wish they said the names of how many sides they have. But that's okay. Toro line, from the very few times I've gotten to hit with it, it does well. And there's a reason that they are doing as good as they are right now. They do make some good quality strings. I have not gotten to play test too many of them, but hey, Toro line, if you're ever watching this and you want to send a care package to your boy, I'll gladly review any of the strings that you want me to on the channel. But with using Toro, with it being 6-sided, I think, like you said, if you go with a little bit of a stiffer poly, it definitely could help. my one personal favorite that I would say you may want to try, Andrew, if you think your arm's going to be able to handle it and you have that tennis elbow, but definitely going to be stiffer and similar to Toro Toro, is probably going to be Link's Tour from Head, just because that's also six-sided, just like Toro Toro is. And to me, it's a little bit more stiff from what I would say compared to Toro Toro. So just something to try in your speed to see if that helps give you that better feel that you're wanting out of the 2023 compared, just to see if it's worth it, or even you're like, no, I kind of need to go to 2025 because I just want the feel. You're welcome, man. Happy to help. I'll try that and Slinko Confidential. Yeah. Those two I think would do just fine for you, especially to try. I don't think there's one to try first. I think either one you could go right into and you'd probably be able to figure it out. But if you are going to choose one, I would probably just try Link's Tour first, just because head racket, head string usually is a good combo, but head Link's Tour also has the same amount of sides as Toro Toro, so it's a little bit more of an easy comparison side by side, whereas Confidential, it is only one side smaller, so it has 5 sides to it, but it's still going to have a much different feel. The one thing about Confidential for me is that it just takes so long to break in, or at least to play right whenever I've played with it. So I think if you're going to try the two, Andrew, I would probably start with Link's Tour, and then if you are still looking for something after that, then try Confidential like you're wanting to. But I think you would be fine with either one. Just go ahead and see what you think. Let's see. Deep End, hey Roy, love from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. That's cool. Why do you feel like no pros use the Wilson shift? I run Slinko Hyper G at 49.49 on my shift and beginner, but working on being able to hit with lots of spin. Shift definitely needs that. Shift definitely helps that. So I think with not a lot of pros using the shift, I don't know if Wilson had necessarily planned the shift to be one of those racket lines that you would see at the pro level, kind of like what they did with the Clash. They kind of made the Clash to be a little bit more towards the us mortal players and just the casual to semi-competitive player. So that may be one of the reasons, but also with the shift is just a weird racket to hit with if you're not using a more semi-Western to Western forehand. A lot of the pros, from what I've seen, do use the semi-Western forehand, so it would technically make sense to go to it. But a lot of it, I also think, is just with whatever racket they were using previously, they just want to stick to it, and they don't want to switch to something either right in the middle of the season, or if they try it in the off season, they just may not have liked it. Like I said, to me, the shift is weird, and if you're not really into it, it's just not going to work out. And that's where I think Wilson struggles the most, is because the shift being the spin racket that replaced the burn, if they can figure out what went wrong with the shift in terms of how they either talked about it or why it didn't necessarily take off for any of the pros. I don't necessarily know if they had a lot of pros testing the racket when they were first creating it or anything, and that's maybe why not any of them switched to it. But I think that if they can figure out what went wrong there, or what is kind of going on to what the players want, and can make an actual spin racket that some of them will move to, then it's going to be a lot easier and a lot more it'll be a lot more relatable, seeing that you have the pro using an actual spin racket that the shift just kind of never really amounted to from what it looks like. So Deep End, hope that answers the question. The shift still being Wilson's spin frame, It does very well if you are able to use it correctly. If not, sometimes it feels more stiff than a pure drive, in my opinion. So it's kind of that weird balance. If it works for you, it works and it's amazing. If not, you're probably gonna hate the thing. It's usually one or the other, just from what I've seen. Graham, what's up, man? I hope you're doing well out in Australia. It's been a while since we've seen each other. When you're back here in the U.S., we'll need to get on court. But have we started stocking Tourmaline? No, we have not started stocking Tourmaline. I know you guys did, and if you have, does that mean you still get a discount on it? If you do get a discount, I don't know if you do, but we have not started stocking it, and I don't know if they plan to. I think it would be an interesting thing for them to do, but we have not. Yeah, Graham. All right, deep end makes sense. I guess the shift is almost a gimmick rag. I guess Pure Arrow and V Core are still on top. Yeah, the Pure Arrow and the V Core are still on top. Those two, and what else? Every so often you'll see the Head Extreme poke its head around, but the V Core and the Arrow are very, very clearly the top two favorite spin rackets that are at least marketed on the Pro Tour, especially the Pure Arrow 98 right now. That thing is everywhere, not just with the pros, but also just with high school to college to club level players. That thing is everywhere. And the one bad thing about the V Core right now is just being able to get it because Yonex is still having manufacturing issues. So it's almost as if they're not ever going to seemingly fulfill the orders that they have out for it, which is a very big problem if they want people to actually use the racket. So, not too good. Strings by Manny. Thoughts on Percept 100D? I'm still exploring what strings and tensions to use with it. I can actually talk about the 100D quite well, Mr. Strings by Manny, because that was a racket that I have two of because I really, really, really liked it. Now, I will have to say, I do need a little bit more context before I tell you what I think, just because I kind of need to know what you're wanting the strings to help you with by using the Percept 100D, because the racket itself, great for control. It's a good blunt. Jeezel. I don't know what just happened right there. But the Percept 100D, great blend of control and power, and not too much spin, but great blend. I just need to know what you want the string to help you with, and then I can answer a little bit more in depth for you, Manny. So let me know, send another comment, and we'll get to it. Grant, I was always curious if you have any knowledge of the new Wilson frames next year, Pro Staff Blade, and the new Mysterious spin frame, or the head square racket. So I've heard about them. I know that with the Blade and the Pro Staff, just following Wilson's release cycles, Graham, those should be up next. I will say I've been lucky enough to see the Pro Staff. It looks so much better than what is currently out. So much better. And the big thing about it too is it's not necessarily an extreme difference in terms of like how it's going to play or anything, at least from what I've heard. But it just goes back towards that old classic Pro Staff look, and it's so much nicer. I can't wait for that. I think the Pro Staff will finally not be a laughing stock because it's brown. It's still a hard racket to use, and I think what they're going to do is they're also starting to reduce some of the lines, so they'll get rid of a few of the frames themselves, like the Pro Staff X, I think, might be leaving, and then maybe like the Pro Staff 97 UL, just because those are the frames that don't necessarily, they're not the most commonly used or like the most sought after, especially for a 97 ultralight racket or a Pro Staff with a 100 head size. That's kind of the new thing, as many know, with the version 14. So with that, I think they might be getting rid of a few of those lines. I don't know specifically if they are, but that's what I've heard about the Pro Staff. The blade, they've pretty much been keeping a lot under wraps just because it's the blade. But following the release cycle, we should be getting one. And then mystery spin frame. I don't know much about it. I just know that I believe that is what Kachanov has been testing, that blacked out racket. And with anything about that, I don't know anything about from what Wilson has said, Graham, but they seem to be trying to, I would assume, copy more something more like the Pure Aero 98 or the Diadem Axis 98, just because they see how well that's doing, and they're using Kachanov as the tester to see how that works. But that is mainly what I've heard about from Wilson right now, and hopefully the supposed new spin frame does very well for them because they kind of need it. Of course, buddy. If you got anything else, let me know. Head, square racket. I haven't really heard too much about that. The big things I only know about head for next year is going to be if we follow the release schedule there, we already know the speed's coming because they released the new speed as the Legend this year. And then I think also next year, if the release schedule holds true, I think it should be the Boom that's coming next too with the speed for 2026. So those should be the big things. If they add a new line, I feel like if they do add one, they need to take at least one away. And because of what rackets they have, that's most likely probably going to either be the Prestige or the Instinct. Who knows, or both. But I would say that's probably what I would think they're going to do if they are adding another line into their already like huge lineup of rackets. They got a lot. Yeah. William Lee, best string intention for the EZone 100 for comfortable, durability, and control. That, I would say, William, what are you using now in your EZone 100? Because comfortable, durable, and control, you can usually get 2 of the 3. Very rarely, I would say you can probably get 3 of 3. But I need to know what you're using now so I can kind of gauge whether you want it to be whether it needs to be more comfortable than that, more durable, or just have more control than that. Because if you're using a multi-filament, then we can definitely go more durable and control, but it's probably not going to be as comfortable just because it's multi-filament versus polyester. So, William, if you can tell me what string intention you're using right now, then I can probably answer a little bit better. What's up, Ernest? Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for being here. Glad to see you're back. Let's see. Strings by Manny. I'm coming from an EZone 98, so I'm enjoying the feel from the Percept. Feel like I can still get the same amount of power. I enjoy spin control strings and don't currently have any arm issues. Okay. So, Manny, I would probably then go to, just because I've tried this in there before. Let me go back to your original comment, make sure. Stokes wondering what strings intention to use with it. So, Manny, I would probably try, just because I like the string. If you want to go to a sided string, then I would probably go to something like Headlinks Tour, like I mentioned earlier in the stream for Deep End? Yeah, no, for Andrew. I would probably try Headlinks Tour if you want to go sided, and also, what's another one? Why am I blanking right now? Headlinks Tour. Or if you want to go a little bit more towards the more budget-friendly option, you could go like Vocal Cyclone and probably go to like a 16L or 17 gauge, depending upon how often you break string. Especially since you don't have arm issues or anything, Manny, then I think that you can very easily get away with using a little bit more of a stiffer poly, so that way you can really just try and have the string do a little bit more in the Percept 100D, just because the racket is doing a lot to help give you the control from the string pattern. So with that, if you want to go shaped poly, I would probably say those two. If you don't want to go, and I would probably set the tension to just to try it, I would probably set it to whatever you normally use first. So that way you're just testing the string and then play around with tension from there. If you don't want to go with a shaped poly, then I would probably say to go try either Polytor Pro, just because I've used that in the Persev 100D. That's actually what I demoed with in it initially, and I really liked it in there. Not as much spin, but you do get a lot more power and a lot more feel off of the ball, especially in that racket. Or you go with another string that I personally really like in almost any single racket is Technofiber Ice Code, because that one to me very powerful, very not as expensive as Polytor Pro, and to me it just plays very similarly. I don't remember as much about tension maintenance for it compared to Polytor Pro, just because it's been a little bit since I've used Ice Code. But I really like Ice Code and I really like Polytor Pro as sided polys. If you are wanting to get something that's a little bit more powerful, a little bit easier on your arm, and you can generate a lot of the spin on your own, especially in an 18x19. But if you want to go more spin focused, do either Lynx Tour or Cyclone. If you want to go more comfort and power focused, I would probably go Polytor Pro or Ice Code. And then whatever tension you normally use for polyesters, just start there to try Manny, and then switch and adjust accordingly depending upon what you find, based off of if you like the extra sides you get from the spin ones, or if you need to rein in a little bit more of the power from the Polytor Pro and the Ice Code because they're circular polys, then I think that is a-okay. But I would probably try it just to start with your normal tension. Hope that helps. Let's see. Andrew, I saw you comment. I saw you came back, commented again. Let me find it. Have you heard about the new speed, new Djokovic 97 square inch speed? I've heard that it may be a thing, and now I can also say I strung one. Don't tell anyone, but I strung one. And I think it's an interesting idea that if Head actually is able to pull it off, I don't know why they would have gone to a 97 head size rather than just making it the 98, but like the Gravity Tour, like the Radical MP. But I guess they're trying to be different with it, see what they think. And I am curious. I really want to play with it, and I'm really hoping I can, just because I'm curious about it to see how it goes, especially because the speed has almost always been the 100 square inch head size. So I'm really curious to see how it plays and how it feels. So if I can get one, or if I can find a way to finagle my hands into one, I'll definitely have to let you guys know if I'm allowed to. I'm not sure, but we'll see. We'll see. Let's see. Deep End. What are the most customizable rackets in my opinion? The blade has to be in there, I'm sure. Also, is the Regna just a blacked out Persev? So I'll answer the second part of the question first. No. The Regna is its own racket. It's kind of the combination of all three of the main line rackets from Yonex. So the Regna in itself, I've only ever seen one or two of them, and I actually took a picture of it because I was like, I never see this thing ever, so I want to remember this. But I would say from what I've seen of it, I've never gotten to play with one, but it's more similar to the E-Zone. It's kind of more of the combination of the E-Zone and the V-Core. So that's where a lot of people will get it. But a lot of the Regna, I believe, is just with how limited Yonex makes them. That's also what drives up the price more, just because it's a more scarce racket. And I can't speak to the playability of it just because I've never gotten to try one. So, with that being said, to your first part of your question, Deep End, yes. The most customizable rackets, in my opinion, the blade can go in there. I would probably say one that is not seen as much is probably the Dunlop CX200, and specifically the normal CX200, because the one thing that I keep seeing and a lot of people have pointed out about that racket is because it almost always comes in under spec. So that then gives you an easy time to customize it to what you want it to, especially if you're trying to go up to a specific swing weight or if you're trying to get up to a certain static weight. By coming in under spec, it is a little bit easier for that to happen. Now, if you have no idea that your racket is under spec, or if you're just the casual player who doesn't specifically look at the customization, then it's kind of like, this is not what I was expecting at all. And like, why would I ever buy this? But even though it's not necessarily the best thing, if you're looking to customize and build something specifically for you, then I think that's where the Dunlop CX200 can come in and actually do quite nicely if you're looking for a control frame that you can customize more. Another one that a lot of people have liked to customize over the years was not necessarily the new version just because it just came out earlier this year, but the old versions of the Ultra Pros or the Ultra Tours. So the Ultra Pro, especially at the 97 head sizes when they were the 16 by 19 or the 18 by 20. Actually, I have one over here. Let me grab it. So basically, like this racket, the old Ultra Tour, or the version right before the new one that came out this year, these have been very, very customizable for people, and they really like customizing these just because it's very easy to just move the weight around and make everything work for you. But it's harder to find one of these. You probably have a better chance finding the version 4. This one is version 2. Yeah, version 2. So you just have to look a little bit more. But for modern rackets, Dunlop CX200, if you want to go a little bit of racket hunting, this racket was great to customize as well as the previous version. And besides that, in the current lineups, you might even want to try the Gravities. The Gravities, I would think, would do well with customizing. I have one friend that he customizes a Gravity Tour to the Gravity Pro spec. So because he wanted more of the spin that the Gravity Tour provided rather than the 18 by 20 string pattern of the Gravity Pro. So he did that, and he said it was a pretty easy like transition just because the regular Tour doesn't weigh as much as the Pro, and that way it was a little bit easier to calibrate what he wanted to customize to. So I think the Gravities may be something to try if you're wanting to get more and more into customization too. But you can customize anything. You just gotta figure out what type of racket you want to customize, and then you just kind of go from there. But hopefully that helps out deep end. William, all right, I'm using Biphase 52. Cool. So William, if you're using Biphase 52 in your EM100 and you're looking for comfortable durability and control, I think in that instance we are going to have to start going towards a polyester string. And because of you using Biphase beforehand, if you have tennis elbow or if you are trying to avoid getting tennis elbow, we are definitely not going to any sided polyesters. That's not going to be a very good idea. That's just going to potentially increase the tennis elbow chances even higher. So I would probably start with either, like I mentioned earlier, Tecnifiber Ice Coat. Very good polyester string to start with. It's round, very powerful, kind of like Biphase is, just to see what you think about it. Or if you want to go even cheaper than that, in terms of saving your pocket a little bit of dollars and a little bit of sanity because you don't want to spend too much money on strings if you don't know if you're going to like them. Completely understandable. There is Tourna Big Hitter Silver, just regular Tourna Big Hitter Silver, not Big Hitter Silver 7. That's different. But Tourna Big Hitter Silver, if you want to go the most cost-effective route to try a polyester, that's going to give you more durability, more spin. Hold on, was spin one of your big things? It was more durability, more control, and comfort wise, you're really not going to beat biphase if you're going to polyester in terms of comfort, but it will be a little bit more comfortable compared to other polyesters just because it's circular. And yeah, so I would probably go either Ice Code, Turn Big Hitter Silver, or Cot, or well, there's probably another one, or something like Yonex Polytor Air. That one is usually a little bit more towards the comfort side for a polyester. I think Polytor Air may be the one that might die the quickest in terms of tension maintenance, but it is something that my default strength is the biphase, but I want to make the ultimate combo comfortable, controllable power strength one. Yeah. But I would probably, what was I saying? Yeah, Polytor Air. I think that one might lose tension a little bit quick compared to Ice Code and Turna. But those are three options I would probably look to go to if you're coming from biphase. And if you don't want to go away from biphase completely, then I would probably try any of those in a hybrid with biphase, keeping the polyester in the main and keeping biphase in the cross just to see what you think, and then kind of adjust from there depending upon what you like, what you prefer. And if you don't like how the hybrid feels, then definitely go with the full bed just to see what you think, as long as you don't get tennis elbow and anything like that. And then I would probably just say if you're using biphase of 52 pounds, if you go to full poly, you can get away with any of these at 52 pounds. If not, if you want to make them a little bit more like biphase will be, then I'd probably just drop it to 50. You don't want to go too far just because then you don't know if it's the string or if it's the tension that's also changed to make it to where you don't know, to where the racket isn't playing how you want it. So if you can avoid changing tension, you don't feel like that's going to be very hard on you being at 52 pounds with a circular polyester. I'd probably stay at 52 and then just try the strings. If you need to go down, I'd probably stay around like 50 if you do end up doing a full bed of poly. So hopefully that helps, William. Uh, Ernest, I was wondering if the high board technology will be implemented in all the head rackets. That's what I would assume, especially since that they're doing it to the speeds. I would have to see if they're doing it to the booms that I would assume are coming out next year. But I think that I would think that they do put in the high bore in all of the head rackets that are released going forward. Unless for some reason with the speed they just get feedback that this was absolutely terrible and speed sales decline from it. Then that might be one reason that they don't put the boron into any of the other rackets. But besides that, I would assume they would put in all of them going forward, Ernest. Streams by me. Thanks so much. Love your videos. I love Polytor Spin, but it's so expensive. Dude, I know. Polytor Spin is so good. I really like the string, but also at the same time, you can get a very similar play out of other strings that don't cost as much as Polytor Spin. And it's like, man, I like the string, but I don't want to pay for it. So it's like, yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from, Manny. It's so good, but it's expensive. And it's like, I don't know if I can justify that. Ernest, I think I heard rumor that the newer version of the Wilson Shift is being tested in the wild. Ernest, if it's being tested in the wild, I would like to be part of the wild that gets to test it. That would be awesome. But I haven't heard too much about a new version of the Shift. I know that Kachanov is trying a potential for maybe a replacement to the Shift, but we shall see what happens. If anything, I would assume everything that is set in motion, if they are going through with it, is going to launch next year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, and if a new spin racket comes out, great. If a new Shift comes out, great. let's see if Wilson can explain it a little bit better this time around, and we can go from there. Ernest, that's great to hear because I have the V1 and I would love to see an evolution. Yeah. Cotton Bud Enthusiast. Hey, hey Brody, what do you honest opinion on Torline and Restring? Is the hype justified or others just got paid by them? So with Torline and Restring, I cannot speak ill of the brands just because I have not tried the brands. I don't know about if people are getting paid by them. I don't know if people are just trying them on their own. I've gotten to try some Torline strings on my own just because I had a friend that does play with Torline and he really does like it. So I got to try one or two here or there. I have not had a bad experience with Torline. I would probably have to officially get like a specific string that would be more suited for my game because I know that they do have the specific string selector based off of the answers to questions that you put into their website, which I think is really cool. And I think that it was very cool that they had Tennis Nerd actually work with them to help with that, especially building out that AI in order for it to automate the string and then be like, oh, this would be best for you. So from what I've seen and from what I've heard, Torline does very well, and I would love to actually try more specifically them myself, so that way I can know more about the brand and see how the strings do officially play. Restring, I have not been able to touch. I know one person that uses one of their strings. I think it's Zero, whichever one's the blue one. I think Restring Zero is the blue one. He uses that as a hybrid to where he uses that as his main string and he uses Polytour Fire as his cross. So I think that they are able to be played and they are worth at least trying. I don't know to what extent they go to just because I haven't got to play with them fully myself. But I think with how much traction, I think Torline is definitely outpacing Restring. I think they're probably the least like mainstream tennis string brand that is pulling ahead of all the others. And that's where I think that Torline does well. They're very good at packaging their strings. They're very good at marketing their strings. And it just comes down to you actually getting it in your racket to play with them to see what you think. I'd love to play with them. I'd love to see what they do, but I haven't heard too many bad things about them. So that's kind of what I got on there, Cotton. Hopefully that helps. Let's see. William, thanks. That helps a lot. Glad to help, sir. Jono, what do you think of the Yonex Percept? I think the Percept is a very good control racket. I think it's a lot more, hold on. What is the word? It's a lot more accessible to more types of people than the previous VCore Pros were. Previous VCore Pros, because they were a little bit thinner in terms of just, that's how the VCore Pro was because it was the control racket. It was a very thin beamed racket. That is going to be a lot harder for players to use just because the racket is doing even less of the work compared to other control rackets like the Wilson Blade, even the Pro Staff, or say like Babolat Pure Strike, the Head Gravity, the Head Radical, or anything like that. But with the Percept, since they thickened the beam a little bit, it made the racket a lot more accessible to other players in the control frame space, as well as it just did give a little bit more, I won't say a little bit more feel, but just a little bit more connectedness, if that makes sense. I've used both the old VCore Pros and the Percept. I liked both of them. I just think the Percept is a little bit easier for a lot of players to get into now, and is a little bit more tuned to where the modern game of tennis is going, to where it's a little bit more of spin focused, a little bit more power focused, whereas the VCore Pros previously were a little bit more control oriented and feel focused, to where you didn't get much from the racket at all. You had to do everything on your own, where the perceps are giving you a little bit more help. So that's where I would think, that's kind of what I think about the perceps. I think the line as a whole is great. It just is a very little bit more like niche down. You have to kind of like know what you're doing, but it's a little bit more actual. It's a little bit more. It's more helpful than it ever has been before. I'll use that as my final sentence. All right. So Ernest, so bro, what's the con of a higher swing weight like in the 330s or above? Because I would love to demo the older color with a Pure Strike 98 16x19. Biggest thing with higher swing weight, the downside, Ernest, is just that you're going to get tired quicker. And because of that, your form will suffer. Well, your form is going to start suffering and start just deteriorating the longer you do play with it. And when your form starts to suffer or deteriorate, then because you're hitting out of position or you're not necessarily in the right frame, in the right positioning to actually hit the ball, that's where you can sometimes cause yourself to lead into injury, as well as it's going to throw your timing off if you're not used to something like that. You can very easily get adjusted to it in terms of if you're willing to put in the time to actually play with the racket for a long time. But 330s and above, you're starting to get into that territory where not as many people tend to go to, just because it does become a more demanding racket of you, and you have to be a little bit more physically capable to handle that racket, especially for longer periods of time in a match and on your serve, because that's you going to be lugging that thing around for however long your match is going to go, is really going to start to drag you down just because of how much you have to do with that racket specifically. I think if you can find a racket that you can demo that has a similar swing weight to that or is around there, I think you should definitely demo it just so that way you can see what a racket at that swing weight is like. But it's not necessarily something that a lot of people are going to look specifically for, just because it'll throw off your timing. It can potentially cause actual problems later on, especially as your timing and your actual form starts to lose a lot of its, not lose a lot of it, just as your form starts to deteriorate from where you normally are. And the more you get out of position, the harder it's going to be on you. So that's where the higher swing weights do tend to be a lot harder on you, Ernest. Let's see. Rafa versus Fed versus Djokovic for the fun of a little deep end. Okay, so of the three, and are we just asking like which one I like better, which one I think is the best of the three? Because I gotta say, personally, myself, I'm a Djokovic guy. And the reason that I say that is because Djokovic, statistically, is the greatest male tennis player of all time. Like he's got the stats to back it up. Now Roger and Rafa, those two, very easily the most loved players, the most loved men's players of all time. Djokovic, not as much. But statistically, if we're just going off who is the greatest tennis player of all time, statistically, it is Novak. I like Novak just because I like the speed racket too. I do have one of Roger's Pro Staffs, the RF97. I do have one of those. Those were fun to play with. Man, I said I was a Novak fan and that he was the statistical greatest, and 2 people left. Imagine that. But nah, that's not why they left. I hope. But Novak, statistically, to me, is the greatest player. Roger and Rafa, without them, I don't think Novak would shine as much as he does, just because those were the 2 big rivals that he kind of came in and actually just were fighting against, because they already had the pre-made rivalry. He kind of came in as the third wheel and is like, "Hey, I'm here. I'll go throw in another one." But yeah, I think that all three of them amazing in their own rights. It is a very, very rare thing that happened with those three all playing at the same time, and how much they were all actually able to achieve with all of the other two active. So that's where I think it's very impressive what they've all been able to accomplish, and they're all amazing in their own rights. It just is that statistics wise, Novak edges them out, and he's still going. Now, granted, he was the youngest of the three, but we'll see. We'll see how much longer he goes. I would love to see him win one more slam just to say he got 25, because no one's got 25. But we'll see. All right, William, what's my main tennis racket and string setup? So right now, my main tennis racket, it goes back and forth between two of them, just because I really like these rackets. And originally, it was the Percept 100D with a shaped poly. I hadn't really figured out the string specifically that I like the best at yet, William. But I had tried a few different ones, so I knew I liked the Percept 100D in itself. When I first reviewed it on this channel about a year ago or a little more than that, I really, really did like it, even with just the demo string that was in it, which I don't remember what it was, but it did really well. So it was always in the back of my mind. It's like, I really like this racket. But then last month, or like the month before, I got my hands on the Slinko Blackout V2, and I really liked that one. So I go back and forth between my Percept 100D and the Blackout 300, the Blackout 300 V2. Those two work really well for me, and I think now as I continue to play and as I play people that are better and better than me, and I'm like, well, I want to improve too. I don't want to be left in the dust, because who wants to be left in the dust? But I would say that shaped polys are probably where I'm moving towards most. I love my round polys. I love Ice Coat. I love Turn a Big Hitter Silver. I love Polytour Pro. I love Polytour Fire. I love all these strings. They all have their downsides. They all have their upsides. But I'm starting to move more and more towards shaped polys. And I haven't necessarily found a specific string that I will say is my go-to yet. I really like Lynx Tour. I really like Polytour Spin, but I haven't got to play with it in a while because I don't want to pay for it as much. And just other stuff, just other strings like that. But for right now, the rackets, it's going back and forth and fighting me between the Percept 100D and the Slinko Blackout V2 300. So the strings, I haven't got a full decision on yet. I'm still working on that one. Never ends, as you may know. Let's see. Nikhil, what does swing weight add or remove from a game? So with Nikhil, swing weight add or remove from a game. Swing weight is a very easy way for you to, how do I say this? The more swing weight a racket has, typically the faster it is going to swing through the air, because it feels like there is more mass in the racket moving forward. That's a stupid thing. Give me a second. Hold on. I will re-say that so it actually makes sense. Swing weight, when you're thinking about it, the more swing weight a racket has, typically the harder it is to swing. The less swing weight, the easier it is to swing. So if you have a racket with a very high swing weight, you have to do a lot more of the work as the player to use that effectively, because the racket is not moving as fast as you may want it to unless you do the work. If you have a lower swing weight, you do not have to do as much of the work, because the racket is going to do a lot more of the actual work for you. So if you're someone that is getting into tennis, or if you're someone that is a little bit more on the beginner side, you may want to look for rackets with swing weights that are typically in, just if you were to look at a range, and we'll just use, I know these are not normal swing weights, this is just for the example. If you were brand new, you would typically, and let's say our range is from 100 to 200 for swing weight. If you're usually a beginner, you'd probably want to look for something between like a 150 to maybe 125 swing weight. So just because those rackets are typically going to be more helpful in generating spin for you, the racket's going to do a lot more of the work. So you as the player can focus a little bit more on your technique to make sure that you're hitting the ball in the correct position and that you yourself don't have to worry about the racket not being able to help you. The higher the swing weight, the racket is going to need you to do a lot more of the work. So you have to be a little bit more precise with your timing. You have to be a little bit more precise with your actual movements. And just have to be a little bit more precise with everything because the racket in itself is going to be a lot harder to swing efficiently. You also have to be a little bit more physically capable because it's going to feel a lot heavier when you actually swing the racket. So that's where the swing weight is important because it needs to feel comfortable to you actually swinging the racket for about 2 hours or more, because that's usually, rough guess, the average length for a match. So swing weight is important. I will say that, especially if someone is starting out in tennis, just from my experiences, swing weight is not the most important factor to go into. You can, just because a lot of players can tell right away when they are actually just holding the racket, they will like slightly move it and take one swing with it. That is an important factor. But if you can, it's just more important to try the rackets because you may find one racket that says it has a high swing weight, but it may feel good to you just based off of your physical body and your physicality in itself. Or you may find a racket with a low swing weight and you're just like, this racket absolutely sucks because the other specs are coming into play now in order for you to actually make a good quality racket decision. It's just something to demo and to try rather than just kind of like blind firing in it to not necessarily know what's going to happen. So with that, a lot of swing weight is just going to be a lot of the effect of how the racket is going to feel to you when you're playing. And I hope that my previous answer helped you out, Nikhil. If it didn't, let me know and I will attempt to relay the message in a more coherent way. Deep end, nice little Djokovic is like LeBron James of tennis, longevity and the stats to prove it. Hey, Jordan, from what I've heard, and I don't follow basketball, but Michael Jordan is still technically the reigning supreme over LeBron. That's what I've heard. So LeBron, from what I've heard, is amazing. Like I said, I don't watch basketball, but I know a lot more people that wear Jordans and wear LeBrons. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. CB, as I get older, I respect Nadal more and more just because of his intensity that he gave on the court for all these years. Yeah, I can see that. Nadal's intensity, insane, as well as I will always have respect for Nadal because of the record he does have of never actually smashing a tennis racket. That is a record that I think more people should have in their professional career as well. If they are able to do it, I think that it's great. Nadal will always have that over over Roger and Novak because he never did it. The other two, they've done that. Let's see. Deep end, I'm definitely a Nadal guy myself just because it's so amazing to watch him. Federer's offense is intimidating a sight to see also. Yeah, I got lucky. I was able to see Roger play for one time when I went to a tournament that he was at. I didn't get to see him play a full match because his opponent ended up retiring after the first set. But watching it live and actually getting to experience one of those three play live, very, very fun to watch. And I was like, this is pretty cool. Seeing history being made. Let's see. Joe Chan. Any string that suits Aero 98 that would tone down the power. I tend to hit long, maybe thicker gauge. Joe, I would need to know what string you've been using in order for me to actually help you with that. There are plenty of strings I can think of. However, I just need to know what you're using and what tension you're using, so that way I get an idea of where you're already at and what you might have already tried. Cotton Bud, what's so special about the Blackout V2? Every review I watch swears it is the best invention since sliced bread. So for me, the thing about the Blackout V2 Cotton is that compared to the Blackout V1, it is almost a night and day difference with having the foam in the racket itself. So the foam that they put in the Blackout V2 compared to the Blackout V1, it makes the racket more stable, it makes the racket easier on the arm, and it, in my opinion, just gives the racket a better feel. Now, this is especially important, in my opinion, because it is a power-oriented racket, which if you look at the stiffness rating of the Blackout V2, this is usually about a very high stiffness of usually you see it around 68 to 70. 70 is usually right around where you also see the Pure Drive, and that is one of the typically stiffest rackets in the actual tennis world right now. The stiffer the racket is, the more powerful it usually is, yes. However, that also means it's harder on your arm. By putting the foam in the racket, Solinco not only helped to alleviate some of the arm issues that you may get because of it being a power racket that is that stiff, but they also made the racket a little bit more flexible, so it's already a little bit easier on your arm as well compared to the Babolat Pure Drive or some of the other power rackets, and the foam just kind of enhances that even more. So that's where a lot of the people you may watch, they really, really like the update that Solinco did, because the previous Solinco V1 Blackout, it was, since it didn't have the foam in it, it felt like it was a little bit more unstable and it just kind of felt hollow. Like you would hit with it, but if you were hitting against someone that had more pace than you or more power than you, then you kind of got overpowered and the racket felt like it was, if you went to go hit with it, it was just twisting in your hand doing that because the racket itself wasn't able to withstand the actual force that was being put at you. The foam is helping that. The foam is helping that in order to actually just kind of like balance it out a little bit more and make it easier on you, especially for people that are wanting to get into the sport and they don't want to run the risk of a tennis elbow, but they do want a racket that's going to help them gain a lot more power. So that's kind of like my quick breakdown of the Blackout V2. If you want to know more about it, you can shameless plug, you can also watch the video I did on it. It was I think it was like last month I did the video, but that's what I would say. And with the Blackout V2 and the V1, you also have the weighted butt caps that you can also use to customize the rackets with. I think that was a cool idea that Solinco came out with too. So it's just an easy racket to get into, to play with, and just to see and just to help a lot of beginners and even intermediate players to advance depending upon what you want out of your racket. It's just an easy way for players to get a lot more help with the to get a lot more help from the racket without having to worry as much about getting arm issues or anything like that. Cool. All right. Let's see. I like the feeling. Steve, I'm going to say Lee. I may be wrong. If I am, correct me, but I'm going to say Steve. I'm just going to say Steve. I like the feeling of flexible rackets, Gravity MP user. However, I'm wondering if there is any racket that can add more spin to my game. Is there any spin plus flexible rackets? So if you're using the Gravity MP, you're using a 16 by 20. Steve, what string are you using? That's probably gonna be a big thing in there too, but with the Gravity, you're already using one of the more flexible rackets, so yeah, that one I'd probably say flexible, add more spin to your game. If you're wanting more spin, you're probably going to have to look at, and I know this is going to be a weird one to say, but for being flexible and then adding spin, you're probably going to have to look at something like the Clash 100. just because it's a more flexible racket than the Gravity MP, but it's also a 16 by 19 string pattern. So it's going to give you more spin. It's going to give you a little bit more spin than the Gravity MP is, but it's going to have a much different feel. So that's something you definitely need to demo if you are wanting to make sure that that's actually going to work. But the Clash 100 is probably the first one that comes to mind that in terms of being flexible and more spin, just because of the open string pattern and the Clash being a lot more flexible and bendable because of what Wilson made the Clash line to be. So that's probably where I would look if you are wanting to really stay with extremely flexible rackets and kind of go from there. V-Core Ranger rackets are the most flexible spin rackets. Yeah. CB, I would go along with CB there. I don't know about the word most flexible, but they are very, very flexible compared to some of the other ones, like especially compared to like the Pure Arrow. One other one you may want to look into also, Steve, might also be the Dunlop SX lines. I've liked those before just because they're a little bit more of a more flexible Pure Arrow. So either Dunlop SX lines or like the Diadem Axis. Those ones I think you could probably get away with. But if you wanted the most flexible racket that's still going to offer a little bit more spin, I'd still probably lean towards Clash 100. But of course, demo all these first. Do not just go out and buy this. Make sure you try this thing. They're all going to feel very different. Jonah, I'm Jamaican. I will be playing in an open tournament on Saturday. The conditions are humid. The clay is medium quick. What is the best way to prepare for my match on the day? I can beat my opponent on my day, but I tend to start matches slowly. I'll be using an extended version, 27.5 inches of the Percept 9070, strung with Torbite 1.15 and 58. Play with a one-hand backhand hit with heavy topspin both sides. Generating power is no problem for me. Jonah, that's pretty cool that you got your tournament. You got your tournament coming up, and yeah. So with that, Human the clay is medium quick. You're a clay man. Well, what would we do? Best way to prepare for my match on the day. Biggest thing I could probably say, Jono, is especially like the day before, just make sure you're hydrating probably a little bit more than what you're thinking you normally would need to. Now, obviously, you know your body a lot better than I do, but hydration is going to be key here, and probably also to get something with electrolytes in it, because that way, as you're sweating, you can keep up the energy that you have, so that way you can continue to play your best tennis. With starting your matches slow, I tend to do it too. I personally do like it, and this is just me playing when I play matches, but I personally prefer to have my opponent serve first if I can, just because that way I can see their serve and I can see where it is going to work, where I'm going to need to work a little bit more. And at that point, if you get the early break, on their serve for the very first game, then you just kind of start to build a momentum for you in the match by then going into your serve, which I would assume is going to be a weapon for you just because it's your serve. It's usually a weapon for most players. And then if you go up 2-0 right away, it just is very easy to continue that lead. But I would probably say that with hydration the day before, as well as just if you want to have them serve first, so that way you can return. If your return is maybe a little bit better than your service game, I'd probably start there. Or if you just want to come out of the gate swinging because you know that your serve you're going to win no matter what, then just start strong with that, and then just kind of try and steamroll them from there. Starting the matches slowly, it just happens. I know there was one guy on the old high school tennis team I used to play for. He would purposefully not win like the first 4 games of every single match he ever played. Like his record almost always said he lost the first 4 games. And the coach would always come over and was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Don't worry, I'm figuring the guy out." So he just used all of the first 4 games to figure out the guy, figure out where the weakness was, see what his strengths were, and just kind of like how to play around him. And then after that 4th game, the guy's like, okay, I figured this out. And then he would just win the entire match 6-4 and the next set 6-0. So you can play around with it. Your gear, I would say it's not really just much, because that's your 27.5 inch Percept 97D and Torbite, your one-handed backhand and heavy topspin. Your gear at this point, changing it right now wouldn't do anything unless you maybe get your racket restrung. So it's just use what you have, use what you know, and go from there, Jono, as well as just prep early and probably get a good night's sleep before the match too. Got to make sure that you're well rested so you can just absolutely clobber whoever you're playing against tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, Saturday. Let's see. Cotton Bud Enthusiast. My racket is T-Fight 300. It is also foam fill, if I remember. Can you compare it with Blackout V2? Yeah. So T-Fight 300, I would say, is going to be more control oriented than the Blackout V2. The Blackout V2, I'd say, is going to be more power focused cotton. And that is just because I believe the Blackout is a little bit more of a thicker beamed racket compared to the T-Fights. Anytime I think of the T-Fights from Tecnifibre, I always think of control. He does sound like an anime character, yes. But, and the reason he sounds more like an anime character is because I've only heard about this person in Legends. I never actually met the man. I never saw him. It was just a legend of our actual tennis team, because he played there before I did. So it was just a legendary figure, and that's why I can't even remember his name. But yeah, he does sound like an anime character when I say it out loud. But with the T-Fight 300 to the Blackout, both having the foam, they're both going to be a little bit easier on the arm. The T-Fights, the Tecnifibre line, in my opinion, because of the 3 silos that they have, one being the T-Fight, one being the TF40, and the other being the TFX1. The TFX1 is technically the power racket of the 3, but I'm sorry I did that. Anyway, the TFX1 is the power racket of the 3. So that's usually the most equivalent comparison to, say, like the Solinco Blackout or the Babolat Pure Drive or the Wilson Ultra or the E-Zone 100 or anything like that. But the T-Fights are a little bit more kind of like the mid-ground racket for Tecnifibre from what I've seen. The TF40 is like the far-end control. So the kind of range goes like TFX1 for power, TF40s for control. The T-Fights are kind of right in the middle. So it's more of a blend between the power and control side. But the Blackout is just the pure power racket from Solinco. So the Blackout, I would say, probably focuses more on the power compared to your T-Fight cotton. And if you have the normal 300, that is where if you have the normal 300, that's the 100 square inch head size, that's where you're going to find a little bit more similarity to the Blackout. If you have the 300S, that one being the 98, you're going to definitely have a lot more of the control oriented side to the T-Fights. But assuming you have the normal 300 like you wrote in there, then the Blackout more powerful, the T-Fight more control oriented, both being 100 square inch head sizes. Both are pretty good for spin. Both are pretty similar to that, in my opinion. But it's mainly going to be the power thing that you're noticing. So if you're curious about it, it'd be worth a demo just to see. But if not, you have a very similar racket already. If you have the normal 300 cotton, and then it's just kind of like, I'm good with what I got. I know it works and I like it. All right, Steve. Currently using Restring Sync, but I've tried Headlinks Tour and Mach 10. Thanks for the Rex. Of course, sir. Glad to help. Jonah, my sir, is indeed a strength. And great advice. Really appreciate it. I will dial in on getting some good rest. Yes, sir. Gotta make sure. Sleep is one of those like things, man. if you don't get it, you feel it, and then especially in tennis because it's just a solo sport, you go out there not well rested, you're in for a world of hurt, especially in a what however hot it's going to be for you, Jono. It is not it is not a good time if you're just like dehydrated, you're just scrounging for electrolytes, you're just going to be like, do I really have to run right now or slide if you're a big slider on clay? So, proper rest, proper hydration, those things I think are going to help you the most. Your gear at this point, you already know what you have. Maybe you get your racket restrung if you want to be really fresh, but eh. If you think your racket's in its sweet spot right now, I think you just stay there and just really focus on actually getting everything else taken care of physically and letting your gear do the talking because you'll be well rested and ready to go. Whew. All right. So what we thinking? What we thinking, guys? Anyone got anything else? All right. Well, cool. So with all that, if no one's got any other questions, then I may just end it here. We have been going for about an hour and 16 minutes, which thank you all for being here. I appreciate it a lot. I didn't know how many people were going to show up. I know, at least for me where I am, it is a little bit on the later side. So thank you to everyone that has shown up. And to all of you that have left comments, Andrew, Jono, Steve, Cotton, Joe, CB, Nikhil, Graham, if you're still here, Deep End, Nikhil, Ernest, William, Manny, don't think I forgot about you, Manny. And then yeah, if there's anything else, please speak now in the comment section, or you'll probably have to wait till next time. But Cotton, you are so welcome. I'm glad I was able to help as long as I could. But if no one's got anything else, we'll go for the next 2.5 minutes just to like round it out because I can. But if no one's got anything, we can all just hang out and talk about whatever in terms of tennis. But if not, we can go about our nights and do whatever. I will leave it up to you all. Well, while we wait though, I must ask, do we like the live format where it's me just answering questions, or will we prefer something else? I'm curious to know. I feel like the lives do well just so that way I can interact with all of you. If anyone has any suggestions or anything, we'd love to hear it. It's just me here. Nikhil, what is better, Pure Drive 100 or Tecnifiber T-Fight 98? Better for what? Because those rackets are designed to do two very different things, Nikhil. So it kind of depends on what you're trying to... There's not a blatant answer to that question. The pure drive. If you want to overpower your opponents a little bit more, I'd say that one is probably going to be the one that's going to help you the most. If not, if you're wanting to be a little bit more control oriented and you want the rack to be a little bit more stable, then I think the T-Fight 98 is going to be the better option. But it also depends on what you're using and what kind of racket you prefer. Now, definitely don't go out and just buy one of these because someone on the internet said that one of them is better than the other, but definitely demo them. But if you want the racket to enhance your power, so that way you can just overpower your opponent a little bit easier, then I'd probably lean towards the Pure Drive 100. If you want to be able to control the ball and place it a little bit easier and have the racket be a little bit more stable on the shots that are getting sent back to you with a little bit more power, then I think that's where the Tecnifibre T-Fight 98 kind of edges out the Pure Drive. So that's what I gotta say about that, Nikhil. Cool. All right. Anyone else? Final call. You have 30 seconds. Uh, 15. Anyone else? All right. Well, that has been our time here tonight. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. Again, thank you all for those who came out here to actually came out here to the stream. I very much appreciate it. If you did not get a question answered, I will be doing this again at some point. So let me know if you'll be coming back. I'd love to have you again. So, with that being said, I got nothing else for the night. So, as always, take care.